there's also just some laziness in this show. I really hate how I really like the promise of like Jedi witches that aren't like the Night Sisters. Like I like this
Whenever we
idea.
explore the Force in new ways, I'm on board.
Me
Describing it as
too.
the
I
threat and
love
all that,
that.
I thought that was cool.
I really love that. I really hate that like he kills one of them so all of them die.
That's
Like
what I
I'm
meant
just
by
like
like even the death didn't really make any sense because they kept doing the power of many chant and like of everything. Like it seems like a nitpick, but you didn't listen to that recording and say like, maybe let's do that again. Like it's so cheesy.
it's so cheesy on that level, but also like you're if you're gonna here's another thing. If you're gonna do something bold with the Jedi, being like, let's say like it's about over policing, it's about questioning their authority and the actions they're gonna take. Why not just commit? That kind of thing. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like them soul killing the one mother, which is also just like also annoying, kind of like how it's just sort of like oopsie, that kind of thing. I did a
Well, then
kill.
even dumber, where then she was like, "Oh, I was gonna let OSHA go with you," and it's like, you just turned into a giant smoke monster with fangs. What do you mean you were gonna let her go? Like that was not what you were putting forward.
Yeah, I don't. And then also they were like, I don't know. That's another one of those things where everything escalates just because it has to, like to
Yeah.
get to a point of
Oh, we're
that.
getting toward the end of the show. Let's make things go crazy,
Let's make things go crazy. But if you're gonna go crazy, just go crazy. Like
but have it
like
make
have it.
sense.
Yeah, like if you have it make sense first, but then the whole laziness of like we killed one, so now they're all dead, and now the whole thing's gonna burn down, so they'll all be dead now. So like I
Yeah.
wish like if you're gonna shake things up in a cool way. So just have the Jedi kill them. Like that's like have them all attack each other, and then that's what happens, and then you can still have a fire and stuff. But just for them to be like, "Oops, I killed one, so that means they're all dead." That's just
Yeah,
I
it
hate
was
that.
just like they ran out of time or something. I mean, they could have had
Something.
it where the Jedi, like they hacked the elevator to get in. Maybe they screwed it up and then no one could get out and they felt really bad about it. Like, because one thing I really didn't like about this show, and it seems to be like a trend, I even see it a lot like in my comment section or when I talk to people about Star Wars. Everything I wear is Star Wars. So inevitably when I go out, people talk Star Wars with me. But everyone kind of has this attitude now, or not literally everyone, but it seems a lot of people that the Jedi are kind of the bad guys. That's never been the intention. Yes, they lose their way in the prequels, but also the High Republic era is supposed to be the Jedi kind of at their finest. The galaxy's more or less at peace. The Jedi are this unified front. They're separate from politics, but they work with the Republic. This whole show, they're the villains. But then the witches who use the dark side, live near a dark side nexus, and created life with Plagueis out of the dark side are the good guys. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I like, and again, I don't mind that. Like, I really don't. Like, I mean, like, it's sort of like,
If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe.
because you said like it's far enough removed from like stylistically and things like that. But yeah, no, it does bug me, especially now where it's like, uh, especially when you watch the original trilogy, and then that might be an issue with the prequels too. Is like, well, the like when we start taking this stuff too seriously and make it too mythical, and we start to deconstruct the ideas of things, it kind of almost feels like taking it a show about space wizards for kids way too seriously. Because that's sort of what it was at first. Is just like the Jedi are just your like fun, knights and things like that, which is sort of why we romanticize them, and it's sort of like fun escapist things.
But they're
So
also
if you're
supposed to be
gonna
like the best of the best.
right, so if you're gonna start critiquing them, it's the same problem I have with Last Jedi and why I think Andor does everything the best as far as deconstructing Star Wars. Is you got to take time and you'll have to be very clear with your intentions as to why you're saying this. Like
Yeah.
that's sort of why I said like you need to explain like if these guys we know as good guys are now the bad guys, you can't just say these are the bad guys now and that's it. You just go along with it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. What would have been more interesting to me is because just a little bit back, you said if the show had the time. I think the show had plenty of time to do the things. They just utilized it wrong.
yeah,
Because when you get through the whole series and like on a rewatch, I think it's like the third episode. I might be wrong because I watched it in two big chunks. But they kind of do the flashback as to why they're on Brendock and they hear about the Virgin. So you kind of get some backstory. Okay, fine. But then they do basically the same episode again later on with slightly different camera angles. If you're going to spend the time doing that, they should have had the Jedi story where they're the good guys all the way through and some things are muddled. And then have the witch's story all the way through the other way where things are muddled and then show what actually happened where it's you kind of have to split the difference with all of it. That way the Jedi are not the villains and the witches, even though I think they should be the villains because it's the dark side of the Force and that's supposed to be very binary. At least that would have been more interesting where it's the from a certain point of view. That falls into that. But they didn't do it. They just kind of showed the same thing.
What you're describing, though, is like the Star Wars prequel trilogy, though. Like, you know, there's the time for what those movies are. It shows the corruption and the arrogance of the Jedi and how it led to like someone becoming a murderous psychopath. You know, like they're teaching them, telling someone to repress their emotions, you know, to heightening to them. First of all, telling them that they're super powerful, and then also telling them that they're also inherently evil because of the feelings that they're feeling. What that turns someone into when another person who's very manipulative comes along and tells them, no, you should be embracing your extreme levels of power and your dark side emotions, you know, and just give into them. That's what's great about like some of the ideas in The Last Jedi of just like, why does it have to be so black and white? Why can't I just, accept that my attachment to people is what helps me survive and helps me win, which is also the message of the original trilogy. Is it's not Luke being the chosen one or Luke being the son of the chosen one that helps him win in the end. It's his attachment to his friends and his family. Like that's what's most important. But this show,
I'm all for that. I just mean you can't be both light side and dark side.
No, exactly. Like it's sort of. I think that there's there has to be like the true balance of the Force is just understanding that why you're fighting is for the people around you, and So I feel like there is some of that in this show. Like I think Osha and May's story could be really great, but I agree with you. It just feels like there's a lot of meandering also in between all the story stuff. I feel like a sign of a bad show is how many talking scenes there are.
Yeah.
And this show is just littered with them. It's just so much just walking and talking. And the episode 4 is really where I lost my mind, where I was just like, oh, this whole episode is just walking and talking.
It's like just an exposition dump for 40 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
And none of it tells anything about the characters. Like it's all just like, it all just kind of goes out the window at some point too.
It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
The Osha May thing. I do think there was an interesting character there. I will say, because I don't want to just totally trash the show, because I do think there's elements that I either do like or I could have liked if they were given another coat of polish.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people online a year ago watching this a year removed from all the discourse and drama and the expectations. I thought made a lot of it better because there was a lot of stuff that either didn't bother me as much or I actually enjoyed aspects of it that I didn't necessarily a year ago or in my memory I didn't. I just lost my track there. Oh yeah, the Osha and May thing. I don't think Plagueis' involvement at all is disingenuous to Plagueis' story. And I also don't think it takes away from Anakin's story in any way. I don't know why that was like a prevalent thing, because my read on that was, and I'm pretty sure it's even in the Darth Plagueis novel, I haven't read it in a long time, but Plagueis was interested in creating life out of the Force. He was trying to do that. He's not going to get it right on the first try. So he found this cult of evil witches who didn't like the Jedi, were on the run. They wanted to continue their lineage, so he took advantage of that weakness in them. There was a vergence in the Force that he could use, and it didn't come out the way he wanted. He got two beings instead of one. That's why it's two parts of the same whole. All of that I have no problem with. But it's also weird to say that it affects Anakin's story because Plagueis does not create Anakin.
Yeah, I think
I don't.
that I never really thought about it bumping up against that stuff because it's so vague in the movies, at least. And then the only other thing I've read outside of the Plagueis and how how Anakin was created was the Charles Soule Darth Vader comics, which I know I bring up on here all the time.
Oh, they're so good. Yeah,
they're so great. But yeah, like they touch on that very briefly with it. So there's a yeah, no, I don't think it bumps up against it, but I don't know if that's like a good or a bad thing. I just feel like it's underexplored. I really would have liked more.
Yeah. I just have a
Again.
section of my notes of like things that I've heard a lot of complaints about that I don't understand why they're complaints. So I had to get that
same.
out there.
Yeah, I don't really understand that complaint either. And I guess it's just sort of like it felt like they had a bunch of interesting things in this show, but they didn't choose any of them to explore. Like I really wanted to know more about, again, I want to know why why the Jedi think it's bad to create life, and, like using the Force.
Yeah.
And I want to know why Osha and May would be kind of an abomination for that reason, or like why Soul would be so interested in them.